Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Phyto Revival, the podcast, where wisdom is always steeping, laughter is our favorite medicine, and our lived experiences are what root us in our humanity. And I'm your host, Dezaraé Haley. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that affects millions of people, yet, surprisingly, can be very misunderstood. Water. But not the water that you use on your garden, the water that your body sometimes refuses to let go of. Have you ever noticed how sometimes you wake up and your body just feels tight? I know I have. You look down and your hands resemble more like sausages instead of fingers, and your rings don't quite fit. Your socks are leaving indentations into your skin, and you look in the mirror and you notice that you look like a puffer fish. Let's not forget that sometimes even the scale seems to suddenly jump up 5 pounds overnight. And almost immediately, we want to square up and declare war on our bodies. I know I have. We may start cutting out calories and carbohydrates. We buy detoxes and cleanses. We even start searching for the strongest diuretic herb we can find. But here's a thought. What if the water isn't actually the problem? What if the water is just the message? Nature rarely does things without a reason. We don't run out and yell at a tree for being stubborn because the leaves are falling. And when a dog becomes anxious, it's not trying to be difficult. And when a river inconveniently changes its course, we don't accuse it for trying to be rebellious. The truth is that something changed in the environment. These behaviors are simply the result. Our bodies are no different. Water retention is not our body betraying us. It is communication. The body is saying something is out of balance. Please pay attention. Now, here's where people get themselves into a little trouble. We hear the word swelling and immediately panic sweeps across them. My kidneys must be failing. But the truth is, swelling can come from many different places. Maybe you've been sitting all day or traveling. This can cause gravity to pull blood downward, and the lack of leg movement slows down your circulation. And without the muscle contractions that come with movement, your blood and lymph isn't being pumped back up to your heart. The fluid then pools in your lower extremities and leaks into the surrounding tissues, causing water retention. Maybe, like me, you're eating foods that your body really doesn't like and struggles with. It could be inflammation, and acute inflammation can result in localized swelling. So think of a puffed up sprained ankle. But chronic low-grade inflammation can cause a broader water retention and bloating throughout the entire body. Maybe your hormones are changing, because hormones can cause fluid retention primarily by altering the body's salt and water balance. This affects the flexibility of blood vessels. And fluctuations in the reproductive hormones or the stress and blood pressure hormones become abnormal. It can prompt the kidneys to retain sodium, which pulls extra water into the surrounding tissues. Another possibility is that your heart is struggling. Cardiac edema occurs when the weakened or damaged heart cannot pump blood efficiently, causing fluid to back up in the vein and leak into the surrounding tissues. It could be your lymphatic system. It could be moving slower than it should. A compromised lymphatic system can cause fluid retention because it fails to adequately drain excess fluid, proteins, and waste from your body's tissues. The fluid will accumulate in the spaces between the cells, leading to swelling, most commonly in the arms and legs. Maybe your kidneys are involved, or maybe they're not. The body doesn't care about our assumptions. It responds to reality, and sometimes reality can be really frustrating. One of the most fascinating things about the human body is how hard it works to keep us alive, even when we're fighting or ignoring it. Even when we're blaming it for making us puffy, it still wants us to stick around. Let's say you haven't been drinking as much water as you should, and you're dehydrated. Most people think dehydration means the body gets rid of water, but often the opposite happens. The body begins protecting water by holding onto it, saving it, preserving it, because the body's protective, and survival must always come first. The body is not trying to make your life difficult. It's trying to keep you alive, and understanding that distinction is quite important, which brings us to the renal system. And the word renal simply means kidney. Most people think of kidneys as the body's filters. That's true. But it's like calling a conductor just somebody who waves a stick. Technically, you're correct, but it completely misses the complexity of what's actually happening. The kidneys are constantly making decisions. Should we keep this? Should we release that? What should we do with this mineral? Let's remove that waste and hold on to this water. Does the blood pressure need to rise or should we lower it? Every moment of every day, they are helping you maintain balance. I think that's what today's topic is really about, balance. Because when the kidneys are losing their ability to maintain balance, it affects the whole body like a ripple of water. You wake up puffy, your blood pressure rises, waste begins building. The body starts speaking up. And most of you don't listen to your body until that whisper of malfunction becomes a scream of chaos. The thing about kidney disease is that it rarely shows up all at once. Not the way a heart attack sounds an alarm, and not the way a broken bone surges pain signals. Kidney disease is often much, much quieter. It tends to arrive like a slow leak. You can go years without realizing that there's trouble brewing beneath the surface. Then one day you discover that the damage is done and it is much worse than what you thought. Healthcare providers divide chronic kidney disease into 5 stages. Stage 1 and 2, we'll call this the whisper. The kidneys are still functioning relatively well. The signs of damage are present. Maybe protein is showing up in the urine. Maybe imaging reveals changes. And yet, most people feel completely normal. Stage 2 is similar. Function has declined somewhat, but symptoms are often absent. The kidneys are compensating, working harder, trying to maintain balance. And that is something worth remembering. The kidneys are one of the most forgiving organs in the body. They compensate. They adapt. They work harder. The problem is that people often mistake compensation for being in good health. Just because the body is coping doesn't mean the body is thriving. And by stage 3, things become more noticeable. But stage 3 is actually divided into 2 categories. We have stage 3A and stage 3B. Stage 3A occurs when eGFR falls between 45 and 59. And eGFR is a crucial lab test that measures how well your kidneys are filtering waste and excess fluid from the body. At this point, the kidneys are still doing a tremendous amount of work. But even with the compensation, they are beginning to lose efficiency. And some people still feel relatively normal. Others begin to notice fatigue, mild swelling may be present, their blood pressure may be rising, changes in their urination, or increased sensitivity to dehydration. This is often the stage where the lab work begins telling a story before the body has started screaming. Stage 3B occurs when eGFR falls between 30 and 44. Now the kidneys are working much harder to maintain balance. Waste products accumulate more easily, electrolyte imbalances become more common, anemia may develop because the kidneys produce less of the erythropoietin, a hormone that helps create the red blood cells. People may experience fatigue, brain fog, muscle cramps, poor appetite, swelling, and even sleep disturbances. But by stage 4, kidney function is significantly reduced. Fluid retention, waste accumulation, and electrolyte imbalances become much more common. And in stage 5, the kidneys can no longer adequately perform many of their crucial functions, and dialysis or transplantation may be necessary. Because an herb that may be appropriate in stage 1 can be completely inappropriate by stage 5, this is why today's herbal discussion becomes very important. And one way to think about the stages is stage 1 and 2 are the whisper. Stage 3A is the body clearing its throat. Stage 3B is the body raising its voice. By stage 4, the body is shouting. And by stage 5, it's an emergency alarm. So now let's talk about the herbs. I love herbs. My entire career has been built around plants. But one of the greatest mistakes that herbalists can make is asking a plant to do a job it was never designed to do. And yes, you heard that right. No herb can become an organ. An herb may support, encourage, and even nourish a process. But if the organ responsible for that process is failing, the herb cannot take over the job. So today, let's start by going over stinging nettle. Nettle is one of my favorite nourishing herbs, as it is very rich in minerals. And traditionally, nettle is used to support urinary function and overall vitality. For people in stages 1 and 2 of kidney disease, nettle can be a reasonable supportive herb when used appropriately. Some practitioners may still use it cautiously in stage 3A, depending on the individual's laboratory values and potassium status. The nourishing minerals and water-soluble constituents that make nettle valuable are extracted best through what's called a long infusion, which I will be giving you the recipe for later in the podcast, so make sure you have a pen and paper ready. The primary therapeutic actions for nettle are nutritive, remineralizing, alterative, a mild diuretic, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antihistamine. It's an astringent and also a tonic. The contraindications and cautions that come with stinging nettle is to use caution in advanced kidney disease. Use caution when your potassium restriction has been prescribed. Monitor for interactions with diuretic medications. In stage 4 and stage 5 kidney disease generally requires individualized professional guidance. But here's the catch. As kidney disease progresses, mineral balance becomes increasingly important. Nettle contains potassium and other minerals. And what is nourishing in early disease can become problematic in the advanced disease. The herb isn't failing. The situation has changed. The next herb I'm going to talk about is horsetail. It's also known as shavegrass, known for its silica content and mild diuretic activity. Traditional herbalists often view it as a tissue-building herb. For mineral support, a long infusion or decoction is generally preferred. If your goal is silica and a mineral extraction, water does a better job than alcohol. Historically, horsetail was used for urinary tract support, mild fluid retention, connective tissue support, bone health, wound healing, and nail and hair support. The primary therapeutic actions, it's a mild diuretic, it's remineralizing, it's astringent, vulnerary, connective tissue tonic, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. It is best suited for stage 1, stage 2, and in some cases, stage 3A. Contraindications and cautions that come with horsetail. Not recommended in advanced kidney disease without professional oversight. Use caution with electrolyte imbalances. Long-term excessive use may contribute to thiamine depletion. And thiamine is also known as vitamin B1, and it's an essential water-soluble vitamin that helps your body convert food into energy and supports healthy nerve and heart function. Avoid if significant kidney inflammation is present. Again, context matters. By stage 4 and 5 of kidney disease, increasing urinary output is not necessarily the answer. The body is becoming less forgiving. Electrolyte disturbances become more common, and what was once supportive may no longer be appropriate. Now I'm going to illustrate an important lesson with this next herb. People hear the word urinary and they automatically think kidney herb, but they're not the same thing. The urinary system includes the kidneys, ureter, bladder, and urethra, an herb that supports one part of that system without being appropriate for the others. Uva ursi is a perfect example. Historically, it was used for urinary tract irritation and bladder support, particularly in short-term situations. The primary therapeutic actions, it's a urinary antiseptic, it's antimicrobial, astringent, anti-inflammatory, and a mild diuretic. It's best suited for short-term urinary tract support, bladder irritation, occasional uncomplicated urinary complaints. It's not generally considered a chronic kidney disease herb. It's not considered a long-term tonic, and it's not something I would reach for in advanced kidney disease. But the best extractions for uva ursi is tea and tincture. Contraindications and cautions. Avoid long-term use, avoid during pregnancy, use caution in children, not intended as a treatment for chronic kidney disease. This herb reminds us that urinary support and kidney support are not always the same thing. But before we move on, let's talk about that long medical infusion I mentioned earlier. A long medicinal infusion is designed to extract minerals and water-soluble constituents and phytochemicals from the herbs such as nettle and horsetail. To make one, you're going to need 1 ounce of dried herb, 16 ounces of hot water, a glass jar with a lid, and a strainer. You're going to place the herb in the jar, pour the hot water over the herb, cover it tightly. Allow it to steep for 4 to 8 hours or even overnight. Then you're going to strain it and refrigerate. And you need to use this within 24 hours. This method extracts significantly more minerals than a standard cup of tea. Not everything needs an herb, though. Sometimes what we need is movement or hydration. Maybe we should do some dietary changes. Maybe get a little bit more rest. Maybe you need to get your lab work done so you can see where you're actually at. You might need to actually just see a specialist. Or you could even need dialysis. And knowing the difference between these is what separates medicine from wishful thinking. Nature is powerful, but nature teaches us something important. Every living thing has limits. It doesn't matter if it's an oak tree, a horse, a wolf, the human body, your dad, and yes, even herbs. The goal isn't to pretend those limits don't exist. The goal is to understand them. Because once we understand them, we stop fighting the body and start working with it. And that is where healing begins. So until next time, pay attention to what your body is telling you. Symptoms are not inconveniences. They are information. And the question is whether we're willing to listen before that whisper becomes a scream. If today's episode made you think differently about your own health, share it with someone that you care about. Because sometimes the information we need most is the information that we almost ignore. And sometimes one conversation can change the direction of someone's life. So be sure to subscribe and don't miss the next one. Stay curious, stay observant, and remember that healing often begins when we stop fighting the message and start listening to it. And here's one more thing to ponder until next time. How many times have you mistaken your body's attempt to protect you as evidence that it was failing you? I really want you to think about that, because sometimes what feels like dysfunction is actually adaptation. And sometimes the symptom isn't the enemy, it's actually the clue.